Good morning, students. Today we are going to look at Erik Erikson's Psychosocial Development and Crisis. In human life, there are several developments taking place from birth till death. Personality development, intellectual and emotional development. Similarly, there is psychosocial development that starts at birth and goes on till death. We are going to look at this dimension of psychosocial development. The father of psychosocial development was Erik Erikson. Erikson did a lot of research in this area, and he has found 8 stages of human development in relation to psychosocial development. We are going to look at these 8 stages in detail. So starting with, there is infancy from birth till 1 year. Toddlerhood is from 2 years to 3 years. Preschooler stage is between 4 and 5 years. School-going stage is from 6 to 12 years. Adolescence is from 13 to 18 years. Young adult is between 19 and 35 years. Middle adult is 36 to 60 years, and old age is 60 and beyond. Now, Erikson says there are basic conflicts in each of these stages that we just saw. Now, starting with infancy. What are the different conflicts that we see? Infancy starts with a development of trust. So we also see along with it a conflict of basic trust versus basic mistrust. How does basic trust happen? If parents give the infant everything that it needs, comfort, food, care, then it will grow up to think that the world is reliable and trustworthy. The basic needs includes not just the physical needs of food, but also psychological care. The child is happy in an environment of basic trust. When does basic mistrust happen? If the parents or caretakers do not provide the infant with everything that it needs, then the infant will grow to believe that the world is unpredictable, undependable, and a dangerous place. Very often children who grow up in orphanages, who are abandoned, who are not given proper physical and psychological care, develop a mistrust. They find that their environment is not a safe place. So this is the first conflict that takes place. Child either grows with a basic trust or it grows with a mistrust which goes on up to adult age. Now, here the importance is how well a child is taken care of during infancy. Infant can sense a sense of care, a sense of acceptance, a sense of love and affection. So this is an age where it is important to give the child not only the physical care but also the psychological care. Now we move on to the toddler stage. What is the development that takes place in this stage according to Erikson? It is a stage of autonomy versus shame and doubt. What is autonomy? A sense of being free and independent. If the parents are patient and encourages the toddler, then he or she will develop autonomy. Autonomy is a sense of being able to handle many problems on their own. For example, a child would like to button his or her own shirt, or would want to wear his or her own socks or shoe. But many times, parents may be in a hurry. They may try to prevent the child from doing. There are parents who are very patient and who will let the child button his or her own shirt. This gives the child a sense of autonomy and also gives the confidence that he can handle his problems or her problems on their own. Now, the opposite of this autonomy is shame and doubt. If the caregiver wants too much, too early, then the child develops a sense of shame and doubt in themselves. Now, what is this the caregiver expects? Caregivers or parents may be expecting a perfection in the child, that the child should always be doing only right things and nothing should go wrong. Everything the child does should be perfect. This kind of expectation from parents or caregiver would lead the child to a sense of failure and feels shameful. The child starts doubting his or her own potentials. So this is another stage that we are seeing, autonomy versus shame in toddlers. So here again, the role of parents or caregiver has to be emphasized, where caregivers have to be patient when the child wants to explore, wants to do things on his own or her own, and wants to see if he's capable of doing it. So patience and an realistic expectation is expected from parents and caregivers. Now coming to preschooler stage, Erikson talks about initiative versus guilt. Initiative adds to autonomy. Children in this preschool age want to do a task for the sake of being active and on the move. We know how active preschool children are. They're always running around. They always want to be doing something. And they don't like to be stopped. They take up something. They start the task. They want to be doing it. This gives a sense of courage and independence in these children. So, once they're given autonomy in the previous stage, they start taking initiative and start doing things themselves, like taking a shopping cart once they enter a supermarket. They don't wait for their parents to do. They straight go into a shopping area where they know things that their parents will pick up. This kind of initiative needs to be encouraged by parents. The child would be happy when it knows it's being appreciated. This encouraging initiative helps the child to lead a confident life later as an adult. So initiative should not be stopped. Initiative should be encouraged. The opposite of initiative is guilt, a feeling which is a confusing emotion for a child when it comes to out of the child, sometimes for no logical reason. Guilt feelings is confusing because the child doesn't know why it's feeling that way. All that the child knows is it's feeling guilty when his or her initiative does not turn out as planned. Here, the child may be disappointed when a sand castle it has built is collapsed, or if its project on Lego blocks has not worked out as it has been planned. The child is not able to understand an ordinary failure or a change in the project planned. This makes the child leading to the child feeling guilty. So this is what the preschoolers will face. They either have a sense of initiative, or they would end up feeling guilty when their initiative does not turn out successful. Again, here the parental role is important, where we need to encourage their initiative and also help the child to learn that not always all that is planned would turn out successful. The child has to learn from the beginning that failures are part of life. Next is school-going children. This stage is a stage of industry versus inferiority. Here the children are doing, it's a doing stage, and it doesn't stop by just doing something. It's a stage where the children are rewarded for their accomplishments. When they are praised, when they are rewarded, encouraged, then they demonstrate industry. They will be doing, they will be active once they know that all that they are doing is bringing a sense of accomplishment, that they feel they are encouraged and praised, appreciated. So this is a very important stage where if a child has to continue as an industrious child, it needs a lot of encouragement or reward. Now the opposite of industry would be inferiority, according to Erikson. If children are punished for their efforts, then they develop a feeling of inferiority about their capabilities. Very often, children are given harsh punishments when they don't do a task given by teachers or given by parents, or even if they on their own take some initiative and it kind of leads to some failures, they are punished. For example, a child wants to wash a vessel to help the mother relieve her work burden. The child may be happily washing the vessel and the vessel may break. Instead of being understanding, the parent may punish the child for breaking the vessel instead of appreciating the child for taking initiative to help the mother. So here again, it is a lot of things depends on how well the parents encourage children's industry or inferiority. They need to discourage this feeling of inferiority by helping them to do things and still face failures but not be punished. They should not be condemned or punished for every failure that they face. The next stage that we go on to is adolescence, which is a stage, a challenging stage for adolescents because they're neither treated as children nor as adults. They are at a crossroad. This is a stage when they start looking at their identity, start being aware of their sexual identity particularly. So this stage, Erikson calls it as a stage of identity versus role confusion. Identity. During this stage, children begin to develop a sexual identity. This is the time they are aware of their gender. They are aware they are a girl, a boy, and they start understanding their identity and responsibilities that come with it. It's a very difficult stage for them because suddenly all their roles change, and it's a confusing period for adolescents. So Erickson says there is a role confusion at this stage. During this time of life, adolescents tend to ask themselves, where am I going? Who am I? Self-awareness is confusing if it's not done well. They also tend to experiment hopefully to find out what they want to do with their lives. First of all, their awareness of themselves, to know who they are, comes not only from within, it comes from all the inputs they receive from the outside world, either from parents and how parents view them, and how their peers view them, and how their community views them. All this makes up to looking at themselves and their self-awareness as to who they are, and understanding of who they are. And so it's a very difficult stage when they try to understand who they are and their identity, and also where they are going. It's a stage when they start looking at their career choices, who they want to be from 10 years from now, and also about their relationships and the group they want to belong to, the peers they want to associate with. So all these challenges also may bring in confusion of their role. So there is a very healthy identity, or the opposite of a role confusion, in this adolescent stage, which again has to be carefully handled by parents, as parents do have a lot of contributions to make for these adolescents who are confused. Young adult. Erickson says this is a stage of intimacy versus isolation. This is a stage where people like to be wanted, want to have friends. This is the stage when young adults look for partners, they develop friends with their own sex or opposite sex. This is the time they look for healthy relationships and lasting relationships, and they're eager to share their identities with friends. So this is an age where again they want to be developing intimate relationships which would sustain for a longer period. So most of them do develop good relationships with friends, and develop a long-lasting, even lifelong relationship at this stage, either at work or at social circles. But the opposite also can happen at this stage, when people cannot form these intimate relationships. Then that can lead to a sense of isolation, because they feel again a sense of failure to develop an intimate relationship with people whom they want to. This can happen because of their own shortcomings, their own limitations that can come from within, or it can come from the environment, but they would feel guilty and they would feel isolated because of failure to develop intimate relationships. It's a stage where Erickson says that this group can either go into generativity or stagnation. Generativity is very positive because it's this group of adults who are in this generativity stage are very active, and they are always willing to look out for others. They have a concern for others. They want to help others. They want to guide the next generation. And they want to take efforts to help people around them in whatever way possible. They want to guide the younger generation with whatever lessons and experiences they have learned from their own life. And they are active, they're productive, they're very useful to the community around. The opposite of this is stagnation, where the person is very disappointed with the amount of productivity that he or she is producing. Here, the person is very passive, feels he or she is a failure and unproductive, not satisfied with whatever he or she has done with her life all these years, and feels that there's nothing much that he or she has to offer to the community around. So they stay by themselves. They are to themselves and feel quite useless. Lastly, we come to the old age, where it's a stage of ego integrity versus despair. Ego integrity. When elderly people retire, they realize that they have lived a very successful life. And that causes a feeling of integrity, but they feel wholesome. They feel they've again done well in their life. They have worked their best. They have been useful. They've been productive. And this gives them a sense of integrity and happiness and satisfaction and contentment. And on the other hand, there is despair in some of them in this age group, where when they retire, they look back at their life with a lot of regrets in what they see. They feel a sense of disappointment, which leads to despair and self-criticism. They somehow feel they have not done all that they wanted to do. They feel there are many things they would regret, and they feel a sense of despair. They start criticizing themselves at this stage. So we have looked at the 8 stages of Erik Erikson's psychosocial development, which is very important, because it's all these stages that culminate in a very healthy individual. Every human being goes through these 8 stages of development in life. If a person goes through a favorable ratio of both the opposing dimensions in each stage, he will develop into a psychologically healthy individual. Thank you.